The answer, but is the answer really no? Because what you're doing is you're planting seeds.
Mm-hmm.
So when you plant the seed, you don't expect whatever it
No.
is to grow instantly. Yeah, if it does, there is maybe some kind of problem somewhere, right?
You
Um,
mean, like the magic beans
yeah, exactly. It's
and
magic beans.
Jack Jack's stall.
Yeah, exactly, exactly.
Yeah.
Can I have some of those magic beans, please? Uh, yeah. Um, so what you're doing is you're planting a seed in the minds of other people, um, and this seed needs to be nurtured, revisited, watered, whatever, on a regular basis. So now that you have introduced the topic, you can always, and you've introduced it in a friendly, polite, formal, professional way, you can always
Mm-hmm.
return to the topic and revisit it when it is
Mm-hmm.
important. Because you can say to people, hey, because that's the hardest thing for people sometimes is opening the topic to start the discussion. Um, because everybody's got a different perspective, everybody's got a different position, and the hardest part is starting. Once you start, you can then um, get a better feel for how other people see things or think about things. You can begin to negotiate. You can see where there's leverage. You can see where there is flexibility from their side. You can see what they're willing to do and what they're not willing to do, and and work towards that. So
Mm-hmm.
it's worth, in a couple of weeks revisiting the topic and saying, um, I'd like to ask you again if there's any other way that we could do this, and just continue to pursue it because maybe their circumstances change. Maybe it's not about, maybe it's got nothing to do with you, right? You can sometimes get the answers that you want and that you need, but getting them has nothing to do with you. It has to do with what is happening in other people's lives, in other people's worlds. So, um, so even if you feel like you're not progressing, maybe they are, and
Mm-hmm.
that's something that can be very helpful. So, so it's good to have that option, definitely. It's good to have that option, and it's good to start the conversation
Mm.
because other,
Well,
yeah.
yeah. No, 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 no. Finish.
Well, I was
Yeah,
just saying
just
it's
let
good
me
to
know.
start the conversation because otherwise it sits in the back of your head, and that's
Yeah.
the worst place to have a conversation is inside your own head sometimes because it doesn't, it just goes round in a circle. It doesn't progress.
True.
It's interesting because I don't I think that there's hmm how do I express this?
Mm.
When people say there's no time, that's not true. Um,
Mm-hmm.
what there is bad management,
It is.
and so that's what that really means.
Mm-hmm.
When someone says there's no time for something, then my thinking is is that that's really bad management. Now, in the past, when somebody said there's no time for something, I would be accepting of the fact they're busy and there's a lot of things happening. But the ability to organize your time effectively and constructively is the root of a happy working life. because otherwise you will always be chasing your tail and you'll never catch it.
Mm-hmm.
So each person has to be able to organize their time or to realize what is possible and what is impossible. When you look at your day, whether it's 6 or 8 or 10 hours, say, okay, in this 6, 8, 10 hours, I can realistically achieve this. But beyond that, these expectations are unrealistic unless I devote my free time to doing extra activities. And that only works if you absolutely love what you do. You know, if it's your passion. And in that sense, you'll be able to sacrifice anything in order to do your work. And I realize that we bring value by doing more and doing it better because we do more. Like if you study something to learn something a little bit extra or to do something a little bit better than other people in your free time, it brings value, but you have to realize what's going to bring value to the workplace and then realize what that contributes to your future, if it does contribute anything to your future, because there's no point learning a whole new set of skills that you can't apply or that don't bring something back to you from learning those skills. And so no time is just bad organization.
That's what I'm thinking. Like, how can we make the time? What do we have to change to be able to do it through the day?
Here's the thinking of a lot of managers, not all managers, but a lot of managers, is that we just give as many tasks to people as possible and we see what they can achieve.
Uh-huh.
Right, so they create the problem expecting other people to find the solution. But all that happens is some things get done, some things don't get done. There's a bit of confusion and burnout. And so that's not really effective. And then when the managers see that people are burning out, they reorganize things again. And then reorganization creates the illusion of progress because the problem of no time never gets solved. So anytime when someone is saying there's no time, well, the truth is all you have is time. You don't have anything else. You don't have anything else at all. The one single thing that everyone is guaranteed in their life is some time. And so when people say there's no time, it's avoiding the problem. And even when people are under pressure to achieve certain deadlines, it's either the deadline is unrealistic, which is bad management, or you didn't work hard enough at the beginning, which is bad organization. So, and this applies to the individual person working as much as it does to the manager or the director of the company. And it manifests in a lot of negative ways. It can manifest in the fact that the director is working so hard that they expect everyone to work that hard, which is unrealistic in my opinion, because you don't get the rewards that the director gets, because the director gets a lot more money if everybody works harder usually.
Yes.
Or it works the other way where the director keeps everybody busy but is not busy themselves. You know, the directors of company that have time to play golf during the week, right? To walk in a circle for 3 hours. It's like if you've got time to play golf during the week, you're not a good manager because you're not managing your company effectively, because your profits should be so much higher because you've got this time. And you're actually, if you think about it, you're actually getting paid to play golf. So, So that's a ridiculously bad example, because would you pay your employees to play golf? I don't think so. So you're not setting the right example for the people within your company. So and that's hard because you don't want everybody overworked, but you don't want everybody not being as effective as they could be.
Exactly.
But back to the principle of time. When someone says no time, it's never true.
Mm.
Time is all we have, and that's why what we then select is important. And if somebody doesn't have time for the important things in life, it's like, well, you better make time. Oh, I'm so busy, I don't have time to eat properly. Well, you better fucking make time. I'm so busy, I don't have time to exercise. Well, you better fucking make time, because you will suffer more in the long term if you don't solve these problems in the short term. Oh, I'm sorry, I don't have time for you. Well, fuck you then, okay? Because I get the fact you're busy, but it's we all have different needs. So here's an example recently from my life here. So January is about to finish, and I have this agreement with a person that I will help them with their work if they get back to me with project details about what they want to do before the end of this month.
Mm-hmm.
Now they're not. Yeah. Now I have a very, very strong suspicion based on past experience. So I'm imagining this is about 90% true. The person is not going to get back to me by the end of the month. They're going to get back to me at some point at the beginning of next month. At which point I'm going to turn to them and say, screw you, you broke our agreement. And they're going to say, well, it's only a couple of days. And I'm going to say, if you can't keep your word to me about this, then I know that you can't keep your word to me about almost anything. So there. And if someone doesn't hold you to the fire for your inability to deliver on your promises, now I don't care if your promise is not important to you, but it's important to me. And if your word is not what you say your word is, then you don't have any value at all. So you have to make a decision in your life. What is the most important thing? Because you've just blown this opportunity, and it won't happen again. And the sad fact is that adults, professional adults, still need to be told this.
Yeah.
They still need to be told this because they think that people need to be reminded that they're not in control of everything. That's the way that I see it. They need to be reminded that they're not in control of everything. And another person's inability to deliver should not be my problem to pick up. Look, if I think about how we work with companies, right? If I call a company and I want a company to deliver something and they don't deliver it on time, I won't use that company again. I'll use a different company.
True.
Welcome to the free market, right?
Yeah.
Where it might be that I use another company, and maybe that company is even worse than the first company. But this ability to search for solutions is the only way to progress, and to realize that a lot of the time in life there's a 50-to-1 principle of failure, right? Very often we have to try things around about 50 times before we get some element of success. And I think I mentioned it before, like there's, in some businesses it's 10 to 15 products before they have a successful product that they create. And on an individual basis, you might have to do something 50 times before you produce the result that you want. Um, think about it in any skill, in any area where we want to develop. We have to go into it with the expectation that a large majority of the time when we do something, we're not going to be able to execute as well as we want on that. But then at the same time, we also need accurate feedback from other people, which is your execution was terrible. Um, we want to encourage people, right? We want to encourage
Yeah.
people, but we don't want to be unrealistic.
Yeah. The accurate feedback is important.
Well, it is, especially with children. If you're working with young people, even with adults, where people tend to be like, oh, they must know that they're not good at that. Well, maybe they don't. Maybe nobody told them. Maybe they're surrounded by
Yeah.
people who are encouraging them to waste their life on something that it's like little little Johnny wants to be a basketball player, and I'm sorry, unless unless you grow another 2 meters, it's just not going to happen, because there are some physical attributes which are necessary in general for most people to achieve that. Now, it does happen that certain people work hard and are anomalies and are able to do things that other people can't. So there's always that, but you can't expect the exception to be the rule. And most of us, in a lot of what we do, are exceptions, being that we're all different. But that doesn't mean we can achieve everything. Unfortunately, most of us are at best average at most of what we do. But that's okay to understand that average is way better than
the extremes.
Well, yeah. It's average is very often good enough. It's very often good enough, because if you can avoid failure, that's a great success. So it's that element of being consistent enough to avoid failure that makes a big difference at the end of the day. At the end of the day, it's very often not about the football team that scores the most goals. It's about the football team that doesn't give the ball to the other team.
Mm.
And that skill of possession is what leads to a greater level of success. That's why they have those statistics in games. It's like, oh, this team had the ball for 70% of the time, and this team had the ball for 30% of the time. And that 70% of the time, that's why that team won. They didn't win because they scored more. They didn't really win because they scored more goals. They won because they created more opportunity, because they had possession for a longer period of time, and that is just the ability to not make terrible mistakes, or to make small mistakes and correct them as you go along. So realizing that mistakes are inevitable, but don't let the mistake define us, really. I think that's important. So yeah, the no time thing is a big problem. When managers say, "I've got no time," like there's perception is reality, and perception is very often wrong. I mean, that's a huge understanding. What we perceive to be true is very often the complete opposite of what is real. Think about watching a magician, right? It appears that the magician does things magical. They don't do things magical. They just fool you and trick you.
No. True. Yeah.
Because there is no magic. I'm sorry. There is no magic. It's all tricks and deception. And the greatest trick that I think we do as human beings is we deceive ourselves. Your ability to manage is as much about the creation of time as it is about how you use the time. I think real managers create time for people.
Mm.
It's not just a job to perform a task.
Mm-hmm.
It's a job to create greater opportunities in the long term for people. So if your job if you're working 8 to 10 hours a day and it's not creating a fantastically large opportunity for you to do something bigger, better, bolder, brighter, different, whatever, more beautiful in the future, then there's very little point. I'm not saying there's no point. I'm just saying that that unless there's that expectation to be better and to have
Mm-hmm.
have other opportunities, it's not going to manifest.